We're spending some time around the book of John and his other writings. I'd like to spend a little time talking about saving God. Yeah. God gets a lot of criticism. The truth is, when you read the biblical witness, he does and he doesn't mind being criticized. He does not go out of his way to explain himself fully about the things he does that one would think, well, he shouldn't do that. Or the things he doesn't do that people think, well, he should do that, you see. Richard Dawkins, the accomplished biologist, atheist, ranting and raving atheist, though he's quieter these days. Even the atheists got a bit tired of hearing him. But he really went after God, called him all kinds of a jerk, raged at him. And so did Sam Harris and some others of that character. But sometimes when I listen to them or read them, I think they must think that this is very bold speech. Nobody talks to God like that but me. They mustn't have read the book of Job. You've read the book of Job yourself, haven't you? If you haven't, glimpse through it and hear what Job says of God. Yeah. They mustn't have read Jeremiah either. But Jeremiah didn't mind getting at God, saying lots of bad things about him. And God said to him, if you'll stop saying that bad stuff about me, I'll let you. If you stop saying those bad things about me, I'll let you be my servant. Oh dear, what a God, eh? And God superintended the writing of our Bible. I'm not offering any theory of inspiration. All I'm saying is the Bible we've got is the Bible God wanted us to have, and he superintended the writing of it. And he had recorded the bad things that people were saying about him. Oh, boy. If people were saying as many bad things about Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris as in the Bible they say about God, those two fellows would want to sue somebody. Here's a piece. Listen to this. I'll have to jump from verse to verse here and there. From Psalm 44. This is a prayer. Get this. I'm going to read some of it, and you think, that's a prayer? If any of our people in modern days were invited to pray and said the things this fellow says, he would never have gotten up to pray again. We wouldn't have had him up. Not him, we would have said. Here's this fella in Psalm 44. We have heard with our ears, O God. I'm reading the New King James Version, yes? We have heard with our ears, O God. Our fathers have told us the deeds you did in their days, in days of old. And you must hear the sarcasm in this. He said, well, we've heard the stories from our fathers about what you used to do in their day. in days of old. You drove out the nations with your hand, but them you planted. You afflicted the nations and cast them out. On he goes. And then he says in 4, you are my king, O God. Command victories for Jacob. He believes that God is his king, but it's here again the sarcasm here. You're my king, O God. Command victories for Jacob. And you can almost hear him saying, for pity's sake. Through you we will push down our enemies. Through your name we will trample those who rise up against us. Won't we? He didn't say won't we. I'm saying won't we. For I will trust not in my bow, nor shall my sword save me. But you, this is on the basis of all the stories they've been told, you have saved us from our enemies and have put to shame those who hated us. Enough of that, he thinks. And then he says this, but you've cast us off and put us to shame. You don't go out with our armies. You make us turn back from our enemies. And those who hate us have taken spoil of us from themselves. You've given us up like sheep intended for food. You've scattered us among the nations. You sell your people for next to nothing. And you're not enriched either by selling us to them. You make us a reproach to our neighbors, a scorn and a derision to those all around us. You make us a byword among the nations. That's what the nations are doing when they're talking about us. Yeah, you remember those Jews? All of this is in the sarcasm and the anger that he's pouring out. My dishonor is continually before me, and the shame of my face has covered me, because of the voice of him who reproaches and reviles, because of the enemy and the avenger. And how did that come to be? He says this, all this has come upon us, but we've not forgotten you, nor have we dealt falsely with your covenant. Our heart hasn't turned back, nor have our steps departed from your way, but you've severely broken us. In the place of the jackals, you've covered us with the shadow of death. If we have forgotten your name, O God, or stretched out our hands to a foreign god, would not God we knew you would know if we went to other gods. We haven't done that. Bless me. Yet for your sake we were killed all day long. We were counted as sheep for the slaughter. And then he ends that and says, oh, come on. We're your sheep. We're your people. Do something. So when Dawkins thinks, ooh, I'm saying really tough stuff here. He learned that from the Psalms. He learned it from the prophets. He learned it from Moses. He learned it from Job. He learned it down the years from the people of God. We are the people down the centuries who gave this fella speech. More than that, the world has been changed by the Hebrew Christian scriptures that come to their culmination in Jesus Christ, and he has shaped the Western world. You know why people like Dawkins and Dennett and Weinberg and Forrest and Hitchens, all those people who talked all this way and ranted and raved, you know where they got their freedom from? Do you know how the courts give them a good treatment, on and on and on? You know where all of that came from? Even Henry Huxley, Thomas Henry Huxley, a severe critic of Christians. He had no patience with people who despised, particularly the Old Testament. He said that book shaped all our juridical thinking, our courts and everything else. Yeah. Anyway, God gets a lot of criticism, and he doesn't, well, I'm sure he minds it in some ways, but in other ways he doesn't mind. Ezekiel says when he sees some of the leaders dying, he said, "Oh God, what? Is this the end of it?" And God said, "I'll explain it to you one of these days, why I do what I do." But he doesn't go into it at all. We work hard to save God. When trouble comes, when tsunamis hit a part of the world, when all of this is going on and the ugliness and that goes on, we say, well, God's not responsible for this. And we're right if we mean that God just doesn't, well, it's 6 o'clock this morning, think I'll give 10,000 babies spina bifida. That's not God at all. Nor does he wake in the morning with a big stretch. Oh, what a lot. I think I'll have a tornado wreck some city somewhere. That's not how it operates at all. Nevertheless, God has structured this world, sustains the way what we call nature's laws function, and uses them in and through to bring about his overarching purpose. And at times, that overarching purpose requires him to do things that we don't care for. And he will say, yeah, in the end, hold me responsible for it. In Deuteronomy 32, he speaks of his chastising the apostate Israel. He said, this is how Moses puts words in his mouth, and he has God saying, I thought I might just blot them out completely and they'll never be remembered. He said, but this is Deuteronomy 32. Do you hear? I'm going to have to check that it's 32 because it might not be. It's 32. But he says, I was going to do, I thought I would do that. And then he says, this is in the text, I thought, I can't do that. For the enemies who bring them down, they will think they did it. They will think our gods brought us victory in the battles and all of that. They will think that their gods and their armies did it. All the while, it was me. We don't want God to get bad press, so we hurry him out the door. God says, stop it. Hold me responsible. I'll take the criticism. So what then? God gets bad press. He puts up with it. He allows it. Everyone who says bad things about him, he doesn't stop their oxygen supply. Are you done? Are you done? Nothing like that. Much of the world wants nothing to do with him. God help them. And yet, he pursues them in love. Oh, now here we have the love of God, eh? Jesus Christ not only saves humans, he saves God. Yeah. You can read a lot of things in the biblical witness, and you think, oh dear. God, I want all these people executed. I want babies and all. Uzzah, 2 Samuel 6, puts his hand up to keep the ark from falling. God kills him. Oh, that's terrible. Lots of things. You read and you think, oh, even believers, stout, devout believers, half cover their eyes and get an embarrassed look. Yeah. Jesus is John in 1:18. No man has seen God at any time. The only one who has is the only begotten. He has explained him, unfolded the meaning, the purpose, the character of the sound and the person, God. Jesus saves God. For do remember this. When you see Jesus in the biblical witness, when you read about him, you're seeing God at work. You're reading about God when you read about Jesus. Now, it's important to say this, so don't get impatient with me. Jesus is God, but Jesus is God being a man. Not like a man, not pretending he's a man, but actually being a man, choosing to be a man without ceasing to be God. He never ceases to be God being a man. And when that man comes and says, look at me, you're seeing my Father. You're seeing God when you see me. If you knew me, you would know God. Huh. Now, this lovely, beautiful, brave, get all the lovely adjectives you can think of. Pour them all out. When you see all of that embodied, you see Jesus of Nazareth. But even his wondrous life isn't big enough to reveal the fullness of God. For he himself will say in John 14:28, the last phrases, I'm going to my Father. If you love me, you do. You'd be happy about it. Why? Because my Father is greater than I am. Isn't that wonderful? But he shows the Holy Father. People like to think that Jesus, I had a good man and a serious believer who took the view that maybe Jesus sinned some sins. Hebrew writer will say, tempted in all the ways the humans are tempted, yet without sin. He himself will say, which of you convicts me of sin? Huh? Even Judas, up close, was with him for those 3.5 years, let's say. Watched him, listened to him, followed him around all the time. After he betrayed him, threw the money back down and said, what? I've betrayed innocent blood. Pilate said, what? I find no fault in this man. What has he done? And Pilate's wife got on the phone to him one day. He's trying to work all this out. She calls him up. A guy comes and says, it's your wife. He goes and picks up the phone, and she said, I've hardly slept a wink all night. I've been dreaming about that man. Have nothing to do with what they want you to do. Have nothing to do with this righteous man. Yeah. All of that. But then there's this. If Jesus is God incarnate, if he is the image, Hebrews 1:3, the express image of God's glory, he has to be sinless. He cannot be the image of God and screw it up every now and then. No. So listen, when you see Jesus, you see God. And because when you see Jesus, you see God, you look and you say, whatever I don't understand, whatever I can't get my head around, I can get some grasp of Jesus Christ. And Christ looks at us off the page and says, you do well. I am the image of God. And you know me. God can be trusted always to be loving and to do what is right. And he hangs on the cross, experiencing all there is to experience, rejection by his nation, being the catalyst that brings the curtain down on 1,500 years of Mosaic covenant, though embracing it all and bringing it to its fullness. Don't you understand? We see all of that. He's now hanging on the cross, one who trusted himself to his Holy Father. He said, my Father never leaves me, John 8, for I do always the things that please him. And now he's hanging on a cross. And what does he say to us on the cross? The last words he speaks, as Luke records it, are these: Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. What does it mean? He's saying, Father, into your hands I commit myself. I trust you. That's what he says. And then he, having said that to his Father, he turns and looks at you. And he says, look at me. After this, and my trusting him here, whatever you see or think you see, whatever you read or think you're reading, trust me when I tell you, he can be trusted. You can trust God. Heinrich Heine was a journalist. He was a writer. He was an essayist. He was a social critic. He was all kinds of things. He traveled throughout Greece and the Middle East, all that kind of thing. And he wrote a book called, I forget what it's called. It's called Travel Stories, something with travels in it, yes? I thought I could see it here and I can't. He writes, having described, he's in Greece, he describes the gods of the Greeks in the ancient times. They're at their big table, they've got all their golden plates and their golden cups, they're all drinking and laughing and having a great time, as they always did. Almost always did. At the cost, at the expense of humans. And Heinrich Heine, after describing all that, says, then suddenly approached, panting, a pale Jew with drops of blood on his forehead and a crown of thorns on his head, carrying a great cross. And he threw the great cross up on the table of the gods. And all the cups tottered and the plates went everywhere. And the gods grew silent and became pale and paler still until they altogether vanished away. Isn't that a great saying? I wish I'd written that. Can't you see that? Of course you can. Can't you see that? He goes on then to say, you know what makes Jesus the most loved God of all the gods? Because he joined humans in their sufferings. He represented all of them in their sufferings. He made their sufferings a matter of serious concern to him. But the Greek gods and all the other gods, they all had a happy time. They're all happy boys, singing all their songs, bragging on one another, what they did to so-and-so and all of that. They never knew, they never entered into the God who became incarnate in Jesus Christ has become the most beloved God of all the gods. And in doing that, God not only vindicated himself, Jesus of Nazareth, now the glorified and exalted Lord, he saved God. That is, he reinstated God's reputation to be what many psalmists said he was, what Israel down the years, centuries said he was. But in Jesus, that is made abundantly, definitively, and eternally clear. Yeah? We have a great story, don't we? Don't we? That God, the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, bless you and keep you and enrich you. Thank you for coming. Please come back. Bring a friend with you. Would you do that? Please.